Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing great today. In today's lesson, we're going to look at some configuration settings for Rman. Now, in our previous lesson, we looked at different ways to invoke the Rman utility. But for today, we want to look at some settings that will enhance the operations of Rman. And so the first thing we want to do is to open the bash profile of the Oracle user and then set the date and time format for Rman. And for that, we'll be using the NLS_date_format to set the date and time format. But first, let us open the bash_profile of the Oracle user and see what it's like. We'll be using the VI editor. So on my screen, we have the command VI and then the tilde sign and then /bash_profile. This will take us to the Oracle user bash profile. And then we can see the settings of the NLS_date_format. But then we'll need to change this, okay? Because this format, first and foremost, is using the DDMONYY format. But then we'll need to change this format, right? So to start typing, we'll type the letter I to get into the insert mode. And then we come to this point and then change this to YYYY-MM-DD and then colon HH24 MISS. So we now have a correct time format, date and time format. Now, the reason why we are doing this is so that Rman can actually display the timestamp of any backup taken. So this is very important. And then after that, we are going to export the date format. So we're done. All we need to do is to hit the escape key and then Shift+:WQ to save. And that is done. So next, we're going to start the Rman utility by running the command Rman target and then /. So we are connected to the target database already. Now, the next settings we want to check is the control file auto backup. We want to ensure that each time we take a backup, our control file is automatically backed up. Okay? So for that, we use the show all command. Now you can see all the settings that pertains to the Rman utility. But of particular interest is the control file auto backup. So if you look at it here, you can see that by default, control file auto backup is on. As a matter of fact, beginning from Oracle 12c release 2, this was done by default. However, if you still use previous releases, then you need to manually configure these settings to be on. So assuming this wasn't on, how do we configure it to be on? I'll share a simple tip with you. Now, for each of these settings, you would see configure retention policy to redundancy 1, configure default device to this, configure that. This is just the simple command you can use to configure the settings. So for the control file auto backup, assuming this was showing off, all you would need to do was to type configure control file auto backup on. And then if you execute, you would see that new Rman configuration parameters are successfully stored. Okay, so for each of these settings you want to modify, you just use the configure command and you are good to go. Remember, when we use the show all command, this was showing default. But now if you run the command show control file auto backup. One of the things you would observe is that it is set to on and you can't see the default value again. So having done that, let's return it back to the way it was, okay? Let's leave it at the default value that it was. It was on originally. I just wanted to show you how to configure the different settings for Rman, okay? So for that, we'll use the command configure control file auto backup clear. You can see that Rman configuration parameters are successfully reset to default value. Now, if you use the command show control file auto backup, you see that it's on, but then you see that it's actually the default value, right? So this is one settings you need to ensure for your Rman settings. Now I'm just going to exit this and then I'll show you the second configuration that you need to make for your Rman utility. Now for that, I'll just try to connect to my SQL Plus utility by typing the command SQL Plus /assist DBA. And then I want to look at a particular parameter, the control file record keep time. You can see that by default it's set to 7. Now, what this means is that if you do not use a recovery catalog database, for instance, Rman will keep the record of its produced backup files, for a period of 7 days. Now, if your recovery window is longer than this, you want to modify this parameter value to accommodate your recovery window. Okay, so let's assume that your recovery window is up to 60 days, for instance. So for you to be able to modify this parameter, you need to use the alter system set command. Okay, so for that, I would use the alter system set control file record keep time to 60. Scope is equal to both. Now, scope equal to both means that it will be written to both your SP file and then your memory. Okay, so let me just execute this and then you can see that the system has been altered. This is another important settings you might want to configure to accommodate, your recovery window. Guys, I know we are all in a hurry to get into the backup and recovery operations, but it's very important we take the time to look at some of these configurations. They are very important for a successful backup and recovery operations. So that's why I'm taking the time to want to explain some of these things, okay? As we progress, we'll look at some other settings. However, in my next video, we'll start looking at some backup and recovery operations, okay? So thank you for watching this video. I hope it was interesting to you. If it was, kindly like it and share it widely. And most importantly, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload another valuable content. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.